have you ever said anything regretted just to hope you could take it back? Words matter, but imagine mastering your speech and show wisdom in your remarks. Intelligence and a strength is what we are. Exploring 6 great behaviors today. Stoic-inspired linguistic mastery philosophy. Imagine speaking that demands respect, fosters trust, and fits with the principles of a genuinely bright individual, from avoiding needless bragging to choosing silence over hollow promises. These practices are not merely about communication, they're about character. And here's the greatest part at the conclusion of this video. You'll acquire useful ideas that you may start applying now. Whether at work with friends or in your own inner discourse, if this resonates with you, click the like button and subscribe to Stoic Tales Official. Let's study how words might impact, not just talks, but entire lives. Stay tuned. It gets better from here. 1. Avoid flaunting about knowledge. Number 1. Avoid boasting about knowledge. Think about the last time you met someone who couldn't stop talking about their achievements or skills. How does that make you feel? Most people naturally move away from this type A somebody, not because their expertise is invalid, but because their delivery lacks humility. Stoic philosophy tells us because genuine insight doesn't need to declare itself. It's calm, confident, and influential without seeking recognition. So let's bring this to life using a narrative. There was once a guy who had constructed a good career. Any time he entered a room, his purpose was to impress. He spoke regarding his accomplishments, the books he'd read, the individuals he knew. At first, people were thrilled, but with time they became to look through the facade. Instead of feeling motivated, they felt belittled, as if his knowledge was a weapon to dominate, not connect. One day, a co-worker pulled him aside and said, "You have the capabilities, yet your remarks are driving others away." When moments struck hard, he knew that in his effort to showcase his intellect, he'd alienated everyone around him. This is a typical pitfall. We're often conditioned to think that displaying our skills will garner respect. Yet the fact is that bragging generally accomplishes the opposite. The Stoics were unambiguous on this point. Marcus Aurelius, one of the best Stoic philosophers, wrote precisely as, "Nature takes no credit for what it produces. Neither should we claim credit for our own wisdom." What does this imply in practical words? It's about comprehending that knowledge isn't a weapon or a prize. It's a tool, and the way you handle it matters more than the instrument itself. When you brag, you lower the worth of your knowledge. Instead of constructing credibility, you build obstacles. The individuals listening to you aren't inspired. They feel like they're being measured, evaluated against your intelligence. Worse, you deprive yourself of the potential to actually connect. A discussion develops a rivalry, and no one goes away. So let's break this down further. Why do bright individuals avoid bragging? First, they discover that actions speak louder than words. If you're sincerely knowledgeable, it will show in what you do, not what you say. Second, they realize the benefits of humility. Humility doesn't imply downplaying your skills. It involves enabling others to discover your value naturally. Ultimately, brilliant individuals recognize the value of listening. When you're busy bragging, you're not learning, because if you're not learning, you're stagnant. So what's the alternative way? Do you exhibit your expertise without falling into the trap of boasting? Start with intention. Ask yourself why you're sharing a certain piece of knowledge. Is it to really assist someone, or is it to boost your ego? If it's the latter, pause. Recall the purpose of communication is connection, not self-promotion. Next, allow your knowledge. Assist others instead of speaking. I already know how to fix this attempt. Here's a thought that could help. This small adjustment affects the dynamic. You're no longer the person controlling the chat. You're the person elevating it. This is what Stoics call mindful speaking. Eventually embrace the power of silence. Sometimes the most smartest thing you can do is listen. When you listen, you acquire new perspectives. you grasp what others value, and you construct stronger relationships. Quiet isn't the absence of knowledge, it's the acknowledgement of, because a sensible person doesn't need to fill every place with their speech. Their presence speaks for itself. If we return to our narrative, the guy who used to brag finally learnt this lesson. He started asking more questions and sharing less regarding himself over time. People began seeking his opinion, not because he sought their attention, but because he won their trust. His silence became evidence of power, and his humility a source of respect. In the end, avoiding bragging isn't about concealing your information, it's about presenting it in a method that uplifts others. It's about comprehending that your words are a representation of your inner nature. When you chose humility over hubris, you exemplify the very essence of Stoic wisdom, to live not for applause but for purpose. Now ask yourself, how do my words reflect who I am? That's the question clever persons ask every day, because that's the question that leads to genuine growth. 2. Never reject others. No. 2. Never dismiss others' opinions. Views continuing from where we left off about the power of humility in communication. Let's take it one step further. One of the most powerful methods to respect this guideline is to never discard the ideas that others think about. Have you ever been in a discussion where someone brushed off your concept before you even got a chance to explain it? How did it feel? Most of us have encountered this, and it frequently leaves us sting, a sensation that our voice doesn't matter. Stoic philosophy tells us that every individual has importance, and with great value comes unique insights worth contemplating. To discard someone's viewpoint outright is to block the door to understanding, and most importantly, to connection. Now, image a dude. We'll call him our protagonist. He's sharp, confident, and well-respected in his industry. Yet he has one blind spot. He struggles to listen. In meetings, he's quick to shut off notions he doesn't agree with, or ones that don't instantly connect with him. To him, it seems efficient. Why entertain anything that in his opinion plainly won't job? Yet this habit comes with repercussions over time. His colleagues become silent, afraid to disclose their thoughts. The room feels cooler. Innovation pauses. He notices it, but doesn't understand why. One day during a project review, a junior member hesitantly proposes a remedy. It's unorthodox, and the guy nearly interrupts, but something stops him. He chooses to listen precisely this time. To his amazement, the thought isn't simply nice, it's pioneering in the minute. He understands how much he's missed just because he wasn't willing to listen. This tale parallels what the Stoics feel profoundly, that knowledge comes from openness, not arrogance. Marcus Aurelius once remarked, "It is impossible to learn that which you thought you already realize." Ignoring others' viewpoints is in essence cutting oneself off from progress. It's stating, "I've learnt everything I need to learn," which unfortunately is the hallmark of ignorance, not intellect. But let's be honest, listening to viewpoints that contradict with our own is challenging. It challenges our ego. It compels us to face the painful prospect that we could be incorrect. Yet this is precisely where growth occurs. When you allow people the freedom to express oneself, you generate an atmosphere of respect and cooperation. You're not just constructing relationships, you're building trust. So how can you prevent dismissing others' views while keeping loyal to yourself? First, remember that hearing isn't the same as agreeing. You may give someone the dignity of being heard without surrendering your ideals or convictions. The act of listening itself is strong. It demonstrates that you appreciate the individual, even if you don't perceive. Eye-to-eye second approach chats with curiosity instead of thinking, "How can I?" Despite this attempt, asking yourself, "What can I learn from this?" Even the most mistaken opinion could include a kernel of truth. And if it doesn't, you've still learnt anything about how that individual views the world. that insight alone is valuable. Eventually practice humility. Stoic wisdom helps us to view ourselves not as the center of the cosmos, but as component of a broader, complete whole. When you disregard someone's viewpoint, you're behaving as if your viewpoint is the only one thing important, because the fact is, no single individual owns all the answers. Knowledge lies. Mutual partnership in the exchange of thoughts. Returning to our protagonist, his willingness to listen didn't simply save the project, it transformed him. He started asking more questions in meetings, encouraging even the smallest voices to speak out. What he learned was profound. His squad wasn't only talented, they were great. All they needed was the room to shine in the end. Never ignoring others' opinions isn't only about compassion, it's discussing strategy. When you respect the viewpoints of those around you, you uncover a plethora of ideas, insights and possibilities. More essential, you show, because intellect isn't about demonstrating you're correct. It's about comprehending that everyone in his own way has things to educate you, and that, as the Stoics would agree, is the core of real wisdom. 3. Stop from number 3. Refrain from complaining. Without purpose, complaining without purpose. Continue with our adventure into Stoic wisdom, another idea that fundamentally impacts how brilliant individuals approach life. Is this refrain from complaining without purpose. Complaints, when left unchecked, may become a habit that damages not just your relationships, but also your own resilience. Stoicism tells us that although it's normal to feel dissatisfaction, stating it without a positive objective frequently accomplishes nothing but spreading negativity image. This, our protagonist, is someone you may honor, a diligent person, juggling numerous duties like many. He confronts setbacks at work, family pressures, and the ordinary hardships that life throws at us. Yet instead of encountering difficulties head-on, he frequently explodes to anybody who would listen. Complaints about his employer, about traffic, regarding the weather. All the usual suspects at first. People empathize. But as time passes on, his relentless negativity begins to push them away. His words no longer invite connection, they resist it one day. A close buddy says something that freezes him in his songs. I realize things are challenging, but what are you doing to fix them? The issue persists. He understands that although he's been keen to note out difficulties, he's done nothing to seek solutions. Worse, his continuous ranting has sapped the vitality of everyone around him. Those that care about him but are now fatigued by his words. This situation is all too typical. It's simple to fall into the trap of weighing our frustrations without considering their effect. However, Stoic philosophy gives a great reminder: concentrate on what you can control and let go of what you cannot. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your thoughts, not outside happenings." Recognize this, and you will find strength. Complaints specifically concerning stuff beyond our control only reinforce a sensation of powerlessness. They imprison us in a cycle of negativity rather than driving us into action. Here's the crucial: not all complaints are negative when spoken with aim. They may lead to change, but without a defined objective. Criticisms are like yelling into the vacuum. They serve. No one thought about it. Whining about traffic doesn't make it go quicker. Moaning about the weather doesn't stop the rain. Bright persons comprehend this. They reserve their energies for what's important, for what they can affect. So, how can you break free from the habit of purposeless moaning? Begin simply asking yourself one basic question. Sometimes frustration occurs. What can I do about this? If the response is nothing, then let it go venting. Concerning uncontrolled scenarios not just wastes time, but also robs you of your peace. Instead, pour your enthusiasm onto anything useful. Reading, reflecting, or just practicing thankfulness for the everything going good in your life. Another technique is to shape your perception. Instead of stating, "Why does this always occur to me?" Ask, what can I learn from? Because Stoicism reminds us that every difficulty is a chance for growth. Criticisms blind us to these opportunities, while meditation exposes them. Our protagonist, after contemplating on his friend's query, started to shift his approach instead of criticizing. Regarding his employer, he began planning answers for the challenges he encountered at work. Instead of whining about the traffic, he utilized the opportunity to listen to audiobooks or practice mindfulness over moment. His thinking adjusted. He noticed that when he quit whining, he gained clarity. His words held greater weight, since they were no longer packed with negativity, and perhaps most significantly, his connections improved. Individuals were captivated to his calm solution. Focused demeanor in the end, abstaining from purposeless complaints, is about regaining your power. When you want to concentrate on what you can control, you strengthen not only your intellect, but also your effect on the world around you. Stoicism informs us that our words and ideas are tools. Utilize them wisely, and they will develop a life of power and purpose. 4. No hollow promises, steer. Number 4. No empty promises, steer clear. Of speaking without thinking, clear of speaking without thinking, built on the notion of picking our words carefully. Another basic principle of Stoic communication is to avoid hollow promises and always consider before you say words hold weight, and once uttered, they cannot be taken back. Making promises you can't keep or speaking impulsively might ruin your credibility and erode the trust others place in you. The Stoics think that a smart person utilizes their words like a craftsman utilizes tools purposefully and with precision. Picture our protagonist yet again in his quest to be liked and trustworthy. He has formed a habit of over-promise when approached for aid. He says yes, even when his schedule is previously past. Act when opportunity arises. He makes agreements without contemplating whether he has the time, energy, or resources to follow through. At first, people appreciate his eagerness to help, but with time, his inability to produce catches up with him. A missed deadline here, a forgotten promise there soon. Individuals begin to mistrust his dependability. One day a co-worker approaches him after yet another unmet promise. The words strike hard. It's not that you don't mean fine yet. Your words don't mean anything anymore. This revelation is a turning moment. He begins to notice that every time he makes a promise, he can't keep. He's not simply failing others, he's chipping away at his own integrity. This example demonstrates why empty promises are so terrible. When you make a commitment, you're effectively providing your word as a promise. If you fail to provide, that guarantee loses its value. Stoic philosophy highlights the relevance of connecting your words with your deeds. Epicus reminds us, first, speak to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. Commitments should be made sparingly and satisfied entirely. Yet this concept doesn't stop at promises. It extends to all the words we pronounce. How frequently do we say things without fully contemplating their influence, a casual comment? In the heat of the moment, an offhand remark, they may have repercussions we never planned. Communicating without considering frequently leads to misconceptions or needless conflict. The Stoics tell us to pause, ponder, and select our words with care. In doing so, we reduce regret and maximum clarity. So how can you guide clear of bogus promises and hasty speech? Begins by establishing awareness before consenting to anything. Ask yourself, can I possibly satisfy this? If the response is no, be honest. It's best to establish clear limits up front, rather to ruin confidence later. Individuals value honesty, even if it means speaking no. Now, next, practice the art of the stop. When presented with a hard inquiry or scenario, take a minute before answering. Silence isn't a sign of weakness, it's a tool for introspection. At that interval, you may examine your ideas, assess your alternatives, and develop a reaction that matches with your values. This resonates wonderfully with the Stoic notion of mindful speaking. Lastly, be intentional with your commitments. Remember, your word is one of the most precious items you have. Utilize it wisely when you make a commitment. Follow through no matter how modest the work. Each fulfilled promise strengthens your reputation as someone who can be depended, and over time this uniformity grows unshakable. Credibility. Returning to our protagonist, his trip didn't stop with that confrontation. He brought the criticism to heart and began to alter. He started saying no when he needed to explanation his limits. Honestly, he practiced pause before speaking, guaranteeing his words were considered, thought-filled and deliberate. Most significantly, he made it a priority to fulfill every promise he. No 5. Don't deny your mistakes created, no matter how tough the outcome. Gently but steadily, he constructed trust with people around him. In the end, avoiding bogus promises and thinking before speaking isn't simply about defending your reputation. It's about living with integrity. When actions align, you become someone people may trust. And as the Stoics knew, trust is the cornerstone of all meaningful friendship. Thus, before you say stop, before you promise, consider, let your words reflect not simply what you think, but who you are. That's the power of mindful communication. Don't deny your errors, building on the significance of honesty and thoughtful communication. There's another key lesson from Stoic philosophy that intelligent persons never overlook. Don't deny your errors. Acknowledging when you're incorrect isn't a show of weakness. It's a mirror of strength, humility, and the willingness to develop. In fact, how you manage your errors speaks considerably more about your character than your triumphs ever could. Let's return to our protagonist. After regaining trust with his remarks, he faced a new task, boning up to his errors. One specific event stands out. He was directing a project, and in his hurry to fulfill a deadline, he disregarded an essential element. That omission led to a setback that upset his team and slowed their progress when challenged with it. His initial instinct was to divert the blame. He wanted to bring out how close the timetable was, or how others hadn't caught the error either. Yet something held him back deep down. He knew deflecting wouldn't address the problem. It would only destroy the respect he had fought so hard to rebuild. Instead, he opted to confront the situation head-on. He acknowledged his error, apologized to the team, and listed the actions he would take to ensuring it didn't happen again. To his amazement, the reaction was overwhelmingly favorable rather than being unhappy. His team appreciated his honesty and admired his willingness to accept responsibility. In that time, he discovered a significant truth. Acknowledging your faults doesn't decrease you, it raises you. This is where Stoic knowledge glows. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can prove me incorrect and show me my error in each thinking or deed, I will happily change, because it is the truth I see, and the truth never hurt anybody." The Stoics believed that truth is the basis of development. To reject your errors is to deny oneself the chance to learn and become better. So why is acknowledging faults so difficult? Typically, it's connected to ego. We fear seeming inept or weak, but denying a clear error only emphasizes those, that it forms a protective shield that others may see through, and it inhibits you from addressing the source of the difficulty. On the other hand, acknowledging your mistakes shows confidence. It demonstrates you're confident enough to confront the truth and strong enough to make amends. So how can you embrace this idea in your personal life? First, practice self-awareness. When something goes wrong, avoid the impulse to seek outward for blame. Instead, look inward. Ask yourself, what part did I play in this? Owning your role. No matter how tiny is the first step toward resolve, next concentrate on solutions rather than excuses. Acknowledging a mistake. AK is just the beginning. What actually important is what you do thereafter. Specify clear measures to rectify the problem and prevent it from occurring again. This proactive approach not only fixes the immediate harm, but also reinforces trust and dependability. Finally, regard errors as opportunities. The Stoics thought that every loss contains a lesson. If you're ready to realize it, a mistake isn't a failure, it's feedback. It's an opportunity to improve your approach, deepen your understanding and strengthen your character. Our protagonist experienced this directly by taking responsibility for his blunder. He not only rectified the problem, but also energized his squad. They recognized him as someone who could acknowledge when he was incorrect, learn from it, and lead with integrity. This got him a level of appreciation that shifting blame never may. In the end, confessing your faults is about more than merely addressing an issue. It's about living truthfully. It's about accepting the truth. Truth, even when it's painful, and utilizing it to develop. As the Stoics would say, every misstep is a stepping stone to enlightenment. Thus, every time you stumble, stop, recognize what went wrong, commit to doing better, and remember the bravery to own your errors is what sets the genuinely smart. Number 6. Don't overshare future plans. Part 6. Don't overshare future plans. Continuing from the value of possessing your blunders, let's speak about another practice founded on Stoic wisdom, avoiding the temptation to overshare your future plans. Although it's reasonable to be enthusiastic, discuss your aspirations. Expressing them too openly might blur your attention, encourage needless viewpoints, and even hamper your success. Bright persons comprehend this. They let their deeds speak louder than their words. Picture our protagonist fresh off his lesson in responsibility, having regained faith in his troops. He feels eager to tackle a new project he's been picturing for months over coffee one day. He explains every detail with a buddy, the concept, the road plan, the possible consequences. The friend listens, nods, but then answers with a hesitant tone, "Do you really think that's going to work? It sounds hazardous." What happens next is modest but substantial. The excitement he sensed seconds ago begins to wane. Concerns, sneak-in queries he hadn't regarded now loom big. While feedback may occasionally be useful in this situation, it saps his vitality before he even starts. By the conclusion of the discussion, he feels less driven and doubtful about his own vision. And here's the lesson. Oversharing plans doesn't always bring support. It might inspire skepticism and disrupt your attention. Stoic philosophy teaches us to approach our ambitions with calm confidence. Epicurus once remarked, "Don't describe your philosophy. Embody it." The same idea applies to your plans. Don't simply speak about them. Work on them. Oversharing may provide a false impression of achievement, as though talking about the objective is identical to obtaining it. But the fact is that words don't build everything. Actions do. There's also the problem of external expectations. When you disclose your plans, you invite examination. Every step forward becomes a performance, and every setback seems exaggerated under the weight of others. Thoughts. Stoicism tells us to be internally focused, managing what we can and letting go of what we can't. Sharing your goals too swiftly transfers that focus outward, creating you prone to diversions and criticism. Thus, how can you strike the correct balance? First, realize that not everyone has to know your every step. Save your plans for those who will really support and guide you, folks who will keep you responsible without lowering your soul. This is the distinction between seeking validation and seeking knowledge. Second, embrace the power of progress over promises. Instead of stating, "I'm going to do this great thing," emphasis on really performing it when your outcomes speak for themselves. You reduce the requirement for explanations. Achievement is its own announcement, and it carries significantly more weight than words ever could. Third, nurture patience. Ambitions require time, and the process of obtaining them frequently features unexpected twists and turns. Oversharing might cause unneeded pressure to keep to a tight deadline or vision, even when modifications are required. Conclusion: by keeping your intentions hidden, you provide yourself the flexibility to adjust without feeling like you've let anybody down. Our protagonist acquired this lesson the hard manner after revealing too much. He discovered oneself. Paralyzed by the weight of others, doubts it required stepping back and realigning with his aims to reclaim his focus. He started keeping his ideas to himself, giving updates only when he, having made tremendous progress, the outcome he felt less distracted, more driven, and eventually more successful in the end. Avoiding the impulse to overshare your future ambitions is about safeguarding your energy. Your objectives are personal, and they deserve the room to develop without interference, as the Stoics teach attention on what's within your power, your actions, your devotion, and your perseverance. Let others see the outcomes of your job. When the moment is appropriate, till then be silent, stay focused, and let your success speak for itself. That is the core of thoughtful action and real wisdom. When we close this trek into Stoic wisdom, recall, because intellect isn't simply about what you know, it's about how you live, talk, and interact with people, from avoiding the trap of bragging to owning your blunders and remaining anchored in action. These ideas steer you toward a life of integrity and clarity. Stoicism encourages us to be attentive of our words, not merely for their influence on others, but for the reflection they cast on ourselves. Now is the moment to put these teachings into practice. Converse with intention, act with purpose, and allow your development. Inspire people without the necessity for explanation. As Marcus Aurelius stated, spend no more time fighting about what a good dude should be. Be one. If this video resonated with you, press the like button and subscribe to Stoic Narratives, official, for more practical Stoic knowledge. Let's continue this trip together, one thoughtful step at a time. Thank you for watching.